I'm going to give the stage over to Justin.
All right, well, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Hopefully this works.
Great.
All right.
And Carly, are you recording?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. Like Carly said, my name is Justin Farr. I teach at Thomas More University. If you're not familiar with where that is, it's right outside of Greater Cincinnati. And full disclosure, I am running out of here as quickly as I can to go to a baseball game. So just slow me down if you need me to. But so I just wanted to give you guys an overview of how I use Visible Body and how important it was to me when the pandemic started. I was telling these guys before this started that this was the single most important tool that I used to teach my classes when the pandemic started, when we started moving students online and we're unable to do hands-on activities with students. And so if you kind of look at this is my courseware home screen, and it looks like I've got a lot of courses going on. And I'll tell you why. The reason is I like taking everybody's ideas and making them my own. And the single most important link that I found when I came to this, when I started using courseware, was this link here that takes me to Premade Courses. This Premade Courses link, Visible Body has done a wonderful job at creating all these pre-made courses for instructors to download into their own courseware, and they can manipulate those things all on their own. So I just wanted to plug that for a second before I start going through some things. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to pull up kind of a course that I taught last semester and just some things that I did with it. So this textbook correlation is to the Lippert textbook for kinesiology. They start each of your textbook correlations with this getting started with Visible Body and courseware. And I cannot tell you how important that is, because basically what this does is it walks the students through how to use Visible Body. So it cuts down your training time. You don't have to spend a ton of time with the students training them how to use Visible Body. Tells them how to move the models, tells them how to do dissections on the models, how to use the labs. It does a really great job. And then there's a quiz that's associated with it that makes sure that the students actually read the module. So that's really helpful. So I'm going to go down and I'm just going to show you what one of the modules looks like. So this is the shoulder module. It's one of the first actual joints that I start teaching to my students. A couple of reasons for that. It's the first in the textbook, but it's also my favorite joint. So I really like teaching that one right out of the gate. But through the module system, the Visible Body system gives people the opportunity to have these low stakes modules that allows the students to go through each area of the body. And so we start with the bony anatomy, then it goes to the muscular anatomy, and it moves on. And so one of the things that's really cool about that is that you can actually manipulate these things and you can move these things around. Now, one thing I will tell you that I've learned is that sometimes it takes a little bit to load this because you're loading a huge system into your computer. So I always try to do a little prep work before I do class and give it a couple minutes to make sure my models are loaded. But you can also access all of these things through your app. So the Visible Body's done a great job at building these directly into the courseware, but you can also access these things through apps. So while that's loading, well, now my computer's frozen. So we'll just give it a second. See, it's not responding. There it goes. There, oh, it went back on me. There it goes. So in these modules, the students are able to go through maybe, well, this is a fail.
No, it looks like it's loading. When you get that screen, that's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
So
we're going.
If we need to, we'll reload it. This is the reality of what happens in real life, right?
Yeah, it does. And that's why I say I do a lot of pre-work, because you know it's coming. It's especially now it's faster on a landline than it is on a Wi-Fi. I will tell you that. So if you're using Wi-Fi and you're in a weak classroom, get ready. It's going to take a minute. But if you've got it hooked into the hard line, it loads fairly quickly. And I'm
if at any point you need me to share my screen, I have this application up and loaded too. So if anything,
I'm frozen again. I'm just constantly frozen. It's on my end, so I don't.
If you need me, you can tell me where to click if you're going to a specific section, but
I just clicked on I just clicked. Oh, here we go. Hey, look, it wanted to go. All right. So So when you click on these modules, it's going to take you to this module that basically aligns directly with your book. Now, this comes from the Anatomy and Physiology app, and we're frozen again. I will tell you that it never does this, so I'm glad that it's doing it today. There we go. And so once it goes, so I clicked on specifically muscular stabilization. Now within each module, there's lessons for the students to learn on, and you can click on each one of these lessons. So if I wanted to identify the shoulder girdle versus the shoulder joint muscles, it highlights those things for me. It will read that material to me. There's reading. The system will actually read it for you. The students, if they really want to help themselves, they can actually go through and draw. If they wanted to remember something, they can draw on the model. They can also add a note on the model that they can come over here and add notes. And then when they're done with that, they can actually go back and download that image and save it for later studying purposes. Now, as instructors, we can also do that. So a lot of times what I've done is I've gone into what I know they're going to see in their modules, and I've manipulated these things prior to them getting there and given them a PowerPoint with the information. So Visible Body's given me a module that they're going to work through, but maybe there's specific information within the module that I want them to see. So I will come through here and label information for them or little tidbits that I think might help them, write my notes, draw my drawings, download the image, and then upload it into a PowerPoint for the student. And then the student has this PowerPoint that they can have along with the Visible Body that they're going through and working through on their own. Okay. So back to my courses, you can do that for any of these, and these take you to several different of the modules. So if I go back, the next thing that I wanted to show you that's really cool is this Anatomy ID. It's also going to take a minute to load. I think I actually might have one up. I think I did that on purpose. See, I did my pre-work. I knew I had one up. All right, so when you click on Anatomy ID, it's going to pull up this model of whatever you're wanting. So if it was an elbow, it would pull up the elbow model. If it was a lower extremity, it would pull that up. For this case, we're still talking about shoulders, so I went ahead and pulled up a shoulder model. Now, I can do a couple things here. Maybe I want the student to be able to turn in something and show me they know where, let's say, the teres minor is. Well, the student can now do some dissection work, so they can click on this dissect tool. And I know if I've read and I've done my studying, I know that teres minor is going to be under some things. So I'm going to get rid of that posterior delt. I'm going to get rid of my dissect tool. I'm going to highlight the teres minor. And now I can, once again, I can save this image. And if the student wants, they can draw, they can zoom in and draw on their model and say, look, right here, professor, this is what I want you to see. That's the teres minor. Save that, send it to me. So it's another tool that you can use, that you can train the students on how to use that. So you can also do that by creating you can also, well, never mind that. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the next thing I want to talk about is just how great their quiz bank is. So when you go into, and when you go in these models, a lot of times Visible Body will have quizzes that are pre-made for you. And I'll try to pull one up here. So there's like right here, there's a graded quiz. Now, if you don't see a quiz that happens to be in your courseware, you can go into this quiz bank over here, and there are thousands of quizzes that are uploaded in this quiz bank. Not to mention that maybe you don't like the quiz banks, and maybe you don't like the questions that are in that quiz bank. You can go to a question bank. You can create a new question in that question bank. You can go into the quiz bank. You can create a new quiz. And as you create a new quiz, it'll give you choices on what you want to do. So maybe I've just given the students a couple dissection activities where they're having to go through and they're having to show me muscles. And now I can give them a dissection quiz. I'm going to create that dissection quiz, and I'm going to choose the things that I want to choose. Now, I don't want to scroll through here and look at all this stuff. So I just simply go up here and figure out what I want to look at. I'm going to be looking at the muscular system, and I'm going to be looking at skeletal muscle. And then I'm going to just go through and figure out what muscles I want them to find. Okay, so we can isolate those things as well. And maybe I just want to find something specific. Maybe I want to find the latissimus dorsi. So I go up here and I can search for that, and it'll give me something specific. Okay, so it does a really nice job at helping you create your own quizzes, maybe create your own quiz questions. Maybe there's something that you really want the students to know and really reinforce, and so you can go in and create those. Another thing that they can do is through their apps. So if they go into their apps, I kind of live in Muscle Premium. I don't know if I went ahead and pulled one up. I think I had at one point, but it went away. So I'm going to go and pull up Muscle Premium. I did pull one up. Good. So one of the things that I like to have students do when they get into their Muscle Premium is they can go into this little section over here for quizzes. And a lot of these quizzes are similar to the dissection quizzes. So if they know they have a quiz coming up or a midterm coming up, they can go to the joint in which they're going to have the quiz, and it's going to give them a practice quiz. Now, this is a low stakes quiz. It's not going to be graded for the student. It just allows the student to practice things. So the student can go through and they can answer these questions, and it prepares them for their actual quiz. The other thing that I can do as the professor is, once again, I can go through and I can do my drawings that I like doing. So, you know, if I want to go through and annotate some pictures and do some drawings, maybe I want to make sure the students understand origins and insertions for this muscle. I can go ahead and pull that muscle up, talk about which label is for origin, which label is for insertion. I can label those for the students. I can do things on my drawings again, and all of these things are downloadable. So just so you know, I did this once, yeah, always allow. So you want to always allow pop-ups from Visible Body when you use it. And so you download the image, and then the image will download over here, just like a regular picture would. You can pull up that picture. And once again, you have something that you can download right into a PowerPoint, and you can share with your students. So maybe maybe it's just a tool that the students can use to allow them to study. And so here's the picture that I drew for them. I can have my annotations out here on the side. I can have notes for the student, and they can do this on their own as well. So students can create their own screenshots. They can download images. They can save those images. And help themselves in that way. So that's the information that I kind of wanted to share with you. And I guess I will open that up for questions. I saw something in the chat, but.
So if you have any questions, we can go back through and show kind of how Justin accessed some of those different views. We can talk about the differences between the different apps. We can talk about courseware. So if you want to raise your hand, there's no question that is silly. You guys are teachers, so you know that.
So we got a question in the chat from Darrell. How do you edit pre-made quizzes, such as deleting questions and adding questions? And Justin, I don't know if you want to show that, but I'm more than happy to as well.
Yeah, if you want to show, go for it.
Definitely.
Since I'm freezing over here.
No worries. Okay, so bear with me as I just share my screen. And can you guys see my screen so far? Okay, awesome. So if I were to go into, I'm just going to go into one of my pre-made courses that I have created. I'm going to go into this Marriott one just as an example, because I know that I have many different pre-made quizzes here. Let's go into the muscles and muscle tissue and go into this graded quiz. If I wanted to edit the exact quizzes in this direct assignment, I'm going to have to go back into my quiz bank to edit those quizzes. Now, if you want to edit the assignment as a whole, you would do so with this edit button. That's what I always like to preface first. So now that I know the difference between those two, I'm going to go in and edit this smoothing cardiac muscle tissue quiz. So I'm going to go into my quiz bank here. Here is where it will give me the option to edit it. And because it's one of our Visible Body pre-made ones, I don't have the option right now. But let's say that we're in the muscular system. So I'm in this quiz, and this is the one that I wanted to edit. What I would do is I would clone this, and I'm just going to label it test webinar so that we know that it's the one that I'm using today. I'm going to press save. And here it's going to pop up right at the top of my list. So you don't have to go searching for it anywhere. It's right there for you. And then you get this lovely edit button. Once it comes time that you want to take out questions or add questions in, you can go ahead and press that edit button. This will first bring you to all the credentials of the quiz. So the quiz name and the subtopic and all the categorizing features. But if you scroll down, you get to see all of the quiz questions. Here's where you can edit the weight of the question. And then this little trash can icon all the way to the right-hand side of each question will allow you to delete those questions. And then obviously right at the bottom of the list is your add more questions button. Here, this will bring you to our question bank. This is where you can select multiple questions to add them in if you want to add multiple at once. My biggest suggestion is if you want to create your own questions from scratch and not use a visible body question, create those questions first before editing your quiz, because then those will all be in your question bank for you before you try to add them. They'll all be popped up right at the top of your list as well, because they're the brand new ones that you just created. And then you can go ahead and select them with the check marks and press save and next. Once you do that, it will add it. I'm just going to press cancel for now so that I don't mess up this quiz, but it will add it to this list of all of the questions. It will pop up right at the bottom or top. I think top, but it will have all those new questions that you just added right here in this bank for you. Does that answer your question, Darrell? If not, I'm more than happy to show any more. I also need to see if I can see the chat. There we go. Perfect. And if anyone has any additional questions on editing, let me know as well.
So Louise asked, what does weight mean in a question?
The weight is how much each question is worth within your total quiz. So how you would normally grade in your class. And Mary, please correct me if I'm wrong or saying it in a different way. That doesn't sound as clear as it should. Let's say you have 10 questions in your quiz and each question is worth 1 point. That means that each question would be 10% of that entire quiz. If that makes sense.
Yep. So then Daryl asked, once you edit a quiz, how do you then assign it to replace the old quiz?
Great question. So I would then press save quiz. I'm just going to press cancel for now so I don't edit or do anything wrong to it. I'm going to go back to the course that I want to assign that quiz in. So I'm going to go back to my Merriam-Hone correlation, the course that I wanted to edit it within. And since I was working the muscular system, let's stick with that. And I'm going to go right into this muscle and muscle tissue. Dismiss this graded one that I have here. And I want to add the quiz into this assignment. So a reminder, you want to add a quiz to an assignment to assign it and publish it to your students. So if I go right into this folder of everything, I can go right into my graded quizzes subunit. And then right here, I'm going to go ahead and press edit. And then this will allow me, actually, I'm going to have to create a new assignment, correct, Mary?
So what you can do is if you go in, you can then edit and then go to, click edit.
But because it doesn't have the edit assignment content, because it's a pre-made course, I would have to create.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. Dismiss that whole process. I'm going to start from scratch with you all. I'm going to go ahead and let's do, if I wanted to create a new quiz to assign to my students, I'm going to go ahead and use this big blue button in the top right-hand corner that says create new assignment. Here is where it will ask me where I want to take that content from. So this will be all of our applications. And then if you look at the bottom, we have the graded quiz bank. So all of your quizzes will always be located right here. You'll click that blue button right next to it, press continue. And then it's going to bring you to your quiz bank. So here we have that one that I just created that says test webinar next to it. And I can go ahead and select that direct quiz. Now, if I wanted to add, because this is a dissection one, let's say I wanted to add a dissection, a multiple choice, and a short answer all into the same assignment so that your students have a variable of all three. You can go ahead and select the different ones or always filter by question type if you want. So let's say that this one's dissection, this one's multiple choice, and that one would have been short answer. You can select all three and add them all to the same assignment. For right now, I'm just going to stick to that one that I created. I'll go ahead and press continue. And now this is going to ask me to name my assignment. And I'm just going to write quizzing test webinar so that you all know that this is one that I'm creating. I get to edit the due date. So I'm going to make it due Friday at 11:59 p.m. Because I want my students to be able to turn it in by tomorrow. And then I can delay the release date or not, which I'm not going to because I want to release it right now. And then it's also going to ask me to assign the folder. So here, this gives you an option of all the folders in my course. And let's say I'm sticking with that muscle and muscle tissue unit again, I can go ahead and put it right in there. If I don't want it in any of the folders that I already have here, you have that option to create a new folder right here on this page too, which I think is such a helpful aspect that you can create an entire new folder right from this page. But I'm going to stick with the muscle and muscle tissues. Then you get to assign all of the other credentials right here. I'm just going to put a placeholder in for right now. And you always want to assign partial credit, time limit. Let's go ahead and we want to give them an hour. I can then also edit if I want the feedback during the quiz or at the end of the quiz. And if I want to show the correct answers after each question or at the last quiz attempt as well. So we have all these. I'm just going to press don't show correct answers. And then here in the bottom of our page, we have the option to save as a draft or publish. If you save as a draft, your students will not get notified that they have an assignment due. So you always want to make sure that you publish your assignment so that your students get that notification that they have that quiz due at Friday at 11:59 p.m. So when I press publish, it gives you the option to send your students an email notification. You can go ahead and do that if you want. And then I can go ahead and press OK. And now this assignment will be under my muscle and muscle tissues unit. So if I press back here, you'll see that I have this second quizzing unit where that's the one that I just created, and it's under my muscle and muscle tissue unit.
And one thing too, I was just noticing, so if you look over on the right-hand side where Carly has those green check marks, part of the reason why she couldn't delete that other quiz was because it has been published, which means that the students can see it. So if she wanted to change around that graded quiz, so she could go in and she could unpublish that assignment. So go ahead and unpublish it. And then this gives you the ability so that then when she can go in and edit it again. And then as she scrolls down, it gives the edit assignment content. So she could replace the old quiz with a new quiz. And so that's where, you have the ability. You don't have to start completely from scratch. If your content is published and your students can see it, you can't necessarily make any changes, which makes sense, but you can always unpublish it. Does that make sense, Daryl, and everybody else who's listening? Okay, awesome. Great. I was like, how come that button's not there? Which happens to us a lot. And the other thing too is with visible body, you can't break this. Explore, play around, click in. You've learned so much just by doing and playing around with it, and stuff really does make sense. So don't be afraid to explore this content.
And I saw that we had another question from Louise. What does wait mean? Oh, we already answered that. Was there a second one right after that, or was that the only question?
That's okay. Only one so far. So if you want to raise your hand, if you have other questions, or put them in the chat, we can do it either way. Daryl, looks like you're raising your hand. So
I'm going to allow you to talk, Daryl, actually, if you want as well. Well, actually, you put it in the chat already. Can we update a completed quiz to give? But I'm going to allow you to talk because I have a question back for you. By completed, do you mean that the students have already taken it?
Yes. So say, for example, the students have taken the quiz. The quiz has been graded, and they can see their grade in the grade book.
Right.
Now, what if I mistakenly did not give them partial credit? So, for example, say they didn't complete the quiz by the time limit.
Mm-hmm.
They should have gotten partial credit. So if I made a mistake and I did not give them partial credit, can I change that and then have the grades updated?
Great question. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can show you all where that is located. So if I go into my grade book, and I know that I have students associated with this course directly, If I scroll all the way, don't mind the incompletes, I made them take one of the quizzes. So once you get that grade in that specific quiz, here, it will give you all the options to manually change the grade or modify quiz details. Now, if you want to personally manually change that grade, go for it here. I think that might be your best option for how you're describing it. But if you, unfortunately, once you publish your assignment and any students take it, you can't go back and assign partial credit if students did not finish it. So if in that fact that you want to do it for everyone, you can go ahead and modify quiz details and either give the students another attempt, like a second attempt at that quiz, or extend the deadline for, let's say, an extra hour if they didn't have a chance to finish it. And then you can always send that email notification to that student directly. But I think with how you're describing it, manually changing the grade will be a better option for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course.
The other thing too that you can also do is sometimes what people do is they'll have the grade count, like they'll assign the quiz and it counts for the grade, but then they post it as a second assignment for a review, and they give students multiple attempts so that they can go back in and learn and, you know, retake the quiz so that they master that content in, you know, in preparation for the final. So there's a lot of different ways that you can set that up. You can even set it up where you've got the real quiz scheduled like for the 2nd of April, and then the retake study quiz, then you delay that publication so that it shows up like, you know, a week later, what have you. So there's lots of different ways that you can, you know, give students access to things individually or as a course or as a whole class.
That's a great option too. Any additional questions that either are related to what we've talked about thus far or new questions as well? Go ahead and you can either raise your hand or put them directly in the chat as well.
And you can ask for an overview of, you know, we can start at the very beginning if you're brand new to Visible Body. If you want to talk about advanced usage, we just did an update to Atlas where now you have the ability to share tours with students or have students create tours for you.
And that's actually a great added feature to what Justin talked about, is saving those either photos or view that your students really liked. You now can actually share that link with your student and they'd be able to pull it up right in class with you as well. So that's a great feature that we could also show if people are interested in seeing that.
So Beth Townsend just said that she's brand new. So do you want to do a quick little overview, Carly?
Sure, definitely. Bear with me as I just want to make sure I have all of my apps open. Okay, cool. Let me share my screen really quickly. And Beth, if you have any questions, just my chat goes away when I'm sharing my screen. Just raise your hand and I'll be able to see it in my little window too. So I can also unmute you if you have any questions while I'm going through it. So basically what Justin had showed at the first part is that this is Courseware. This is our homepage platform where all of our content is embedded into either pre-made courses that we have built that correlate to textbooks, which Mary has put a little paragraph in the chat about our pre-made courses button right here in the top right-hand corner, which you can go ahead and look and see if you have a textbook correlation on that page. Or you can always get in contact with your rep and they can send you that textbook correlation directly. So here, I'm just gonna walk through this Marriott one that I have preloaded into my Courseware account. And here you'll see that I have all of my pre-made assignments. So this is where all of your content is embedded, very organized for you in the fashion that your table of contents for that textbook would be. And the one that I was in before is just muscles and muscle tissue, so I'll stick with that one. This is the quiz that I just created, so it's totally not a real quiz. Don't mind that one. I'll go ahead and get right into this modules. The first modules will always bring us into our first application, which is anatomy and physiology. And how Justin was speaking about, that looks very similar to an e-textbook setup, very guided and lesson learned. So your students have an intuitive experience to be able to go through the chapters one by one at their own pace and really take in the information at however much time they really need themselves. But here in the description, you can completely customize your assignment. on how you want to view it, any terminology that you want to put into it. This is totally up to you. You just click this edit button here. And what Mary and I were describing before about publishing and not publishing, once you click on this edit button, you get to edit all of the credential of the assignment. But if you want to edit the physical content that you're assigning from the applications, you would go ahead and press this button. This button will bring you to that list of where you're pulling the content from. And since we're already in that first application, it's going to give you a list of all of the content that's in that application already. And you can go ahead and click into any single chapter and select any single subunit that you are interested in assigning to your students. So that's just a brief overview of how to get an assignment set up for courseware directly. Let's get into one of the actual assignments we have. So I'm going to click on number 14, the skeletal muscle tissue, and it's going to bring me into a new web page of that application. And so because we're in that muscular system, it brought me right into chapter 13 through 16 here on the left-hand side. And what I always like to describe is these little red assets on the right-hand side will always indicate what you're getting yourself into. So the cube will always be a live 3D model. The play or triangle button will always indicate a short animation. And then the stack of cards will always indicate a histology slide or multiple slides in that subunit. We also have a little square that looks like it's being zoomed in. And if I can find an example of it, might be in the next chapter, but it's just, oh, there you go. There's an example of what that asset will look like. That's just going to be a 2D static image or diagram, very similar to what you would see in a textbook normally on a flat page. That's just describing certain specific aspects of, let's say, first class lovers or second class lovers. And you can always go into those. But let's go back into, actually, we were in chapter 14. So if I go ahead and click right into chapter 14, this will bring us right into a live 3D model where I can turn, twist, rotate, manipulate this view however I wish as an instructor, as well as a student. You get that title and body of text in the top left-hand corner, but then you also get this bank of key terms highlighted in red. So not only can you click on any single muscle or structure in the model itself while you're being able to manipulate it, but this gives you the terms associated with whatever section you're in. So as a student, as you're going through, it's going to separate, at least for the muscular unit, it's going to separate it by muscle group. So you'll get into the upper extremity, the lower extremity, the thoracic cage, all of that good stuff, and it will separate it by key terms. So when I go ahead and click on that direct muscle, it's going to highlight that in blue for me. Now I had the first one selected, so it just selected both for me. But if I go into the brachial plexus, it will highlight that nerve for me in blue. So if you see right here, it's going all the way up throughout the arm and it's highlighting that entire brachial plexus. That will normally be, will normally be yellow is what our nerves look like. And then here we got this one, and it will highlight that artery specifically in blue for your students so that it's an optimal view.
And there's a pronunciation button because that's a little bit of a challenging one. So
right at the top left-hand corner.
Pectoral branch of the thoracoacromial trunk.
There you go. And so now once I click on any single structure, you get this pop-up box in the top left-hand corner, which gives you the correct title, the correct pronunciation. And then this little textbook icon will actually bring down a textbook definition. And if it's a muscle, so I'm going to click back into the pectoralis major, it will also give you the origin, insertion, innervation, action, and blood supply right underneath the definition. Additionally, we have these manipulative views on the bottom as well, where you can, once you have something selected, you can either fade or hide that muscle completely or structure, or you can isolate those by themselves by fading or completely hiding everything else. So you get this isolated view that you can still manipulate while you're either lecturing or students are studying. So this is our A&P application. I'm gonna pop back into our courseware and go right into our next, I guess, subunit. How Justin was describing before is he uses anatomy ID more so in muscle premium, correct? I assume that you do it in, yep. So when I go into anatomy ID, this is gonna bring me into Atlas actually. So our muscle premium is very similar to Atlas, but it's a focus on the musculoskeletal system versus the entire body and all of the systems included. So this one, it's going to be very similar to what Justin was showing before. but I get a lot of recommendations from professors that this is where they'll put a bank of terms that they want their students to go ahead and memorize. That anatomy ID is really saying to your students, go identify the structure and memorize it, because you're going to have a quiz on it. So when I go ahead and click on number 20, this is going to bring me right into our Atlas application. And because I'm still in that muscular system unit, it brought me right into an overview of the entire muscular system. So that page that you saw before is going to be our main menu button here in the bottom. That's all of our preset views that we have already built for you. Now, how Justin was speaking about it before, you can build your entire own view if you wish, and save that as a favorite to always refer back to. So if I minimize this and I go into my muscular system and I want to click on the, let's say the middle head, the deltoid, but I don't want that there. I want to be able to see the nerve underneath it. So I can go ahead and hide that. And then let's say I want to get a little bit more in. I want to highlight that nerve. I want my students to know what that is. I want to add a tag there because we're covering, oh, it's totally taking the wrong nerve. We want that one, add tag. There we go. Oh no, it's still faded. Let me click on one of these and I'll add a second tag as well. It's not liking that I have just the middle head faded. Is it faded because I have the middle head faded or hidden, possibly?
I'm not sure about that. That's kind of a curious component. Maybe show the tagging on a muscle and see what it does there.
Definitely. So let's do this head of the deltoid instead, add the tag, and that's what the tag will look like if you don't have that structure hidden or faded at any point. So let's say I have this view completely customized. I can always use my save view in the bottom toolbar right here. Those will all show up if I go to my main menu right here in your My Library. You'll always be able to go back to that. And if I click on that, actually, it will be under favorites. Now, I don't have any favorites yet preloaded, but I do have a bunch of tours that I've created and added in. So I'll get into that in a few seconds, but let's say that I'm back at this view and I really like it. Your students can, again, manipulate this view however they wish. The one factor I wanted to show you that's a little bit different than what you've seen thus far is you get that textbook icon, which gives you a definition, origin, insertion, innervation, and action. But right next to that, you also get common pathologies with the little stethoscope icon. That will give you a brief overview of that pathology. And obviously I have a muscle selected, but if I were to select on a nerve, that list will obviously change. It will always associate to whatever structure you have selected. And then if I click on, you'll always get correct pronunciation with the little speaker icon. But if I go ahead and click on this details icon, this will actually bring me into an isolated view of that muscle group or area within the body. And this is what Justin was speaking about before that he likes to use to get into, let's say, muscle actions and like different parts of just one specific isolated area. So here I have my insertion point and origin point labeled in the red and blue pins. When I click on that red pin, it will tell me exactly where that origin point is. And I can always zoom, rotate to see exactly where it's originating from and see it from any angle. But I can always click on this blue pin, which will bring me to an optimal view of that insertion point as well. And that is a great isolated view that your students can be able to manipulate so that they can actually add in the blood supply singularly or that nerve singularly, or pull it all together with that origin and insertion point too. So you get all of that in this one detailed view as well. And I know that I just saw 2 chats pop up. Mary, if you don't mind asking, is it a question that I'm on right now?
Nope, I've got it. I've got it. So what are the question was kind of details about, looking at how to look at uterine fibroids. And I recommended that they connect with their rep. I think it's Megan who works with you guys to show you some of that content, because you do have the ability with the draw tool to be able to then create views specifically, and then you save that and then you thread those views together and you can share that with your students. So I think that would be a good way to do it. One thing too, is I also wanted, before we finish up, you can wrap this up, but I'm interested too in hearing from Justin, now that you're going to be moving back to face-to-face, you said that Visible Body is super helpful with teaching online. How is it going to transition, because you're going to continue using it face to face, and how do you see that impacting it? But so you can think about that, Justin, while Carly wraps up.
Definitely. Just as the last few things that I wanted to show you is I'm going to show you an example of a tour that we have pre-made. Excuse me. And I'm going to go ahead and do one on the cranial nerves that one of our team members on the content team created for us to be able to show. So this one's specifically getting into the cranial nerves. Obviously, we have inserted all this information into this beautiful notepad here, but I can still rotate and view this model from any angle that I choose that I want to see it from. And I can still manipulate it so that I can see, let's say, the inner workings of the brain if I wish. And my computer is completely glitching right now. I'm sorry, everyone. So that I can click on a specific structure, there we go, and hide that and still manipulate it while I'm still in this tour. And I can click on any specific part of the brain if I wanted to as well. But so here's the first saved view that I've created, let's say as an instructor myself. I have 13 more slides in this tour specifically talking about cranial nerves that I wanted to save as views. So I put them all together into like a 3D PowerPoint where I can now click on this gray arrow in our pop-up box at the top and go right into that next slide, getting into that next little part that I wanted to get into and the view that I've created myself. I can keep going throughout this. Now, obviously, I'm still in this cranial nerves aspect, speaking about each nerve specifically. And I can go through all 13 of these, but I don't necessarily need to for this aspect, but this is just an example of one of the tours we have. Now, since Justin's working in kinesiology, I wanted to show you one other that we have in more so biomechanics standpoint, where we're talking about the different types of levers. So here we have a first class lever compared to a second class lever compared to a third class lever, excuse me. And you can always go back and forth between these slides to be able to pull this up during lecture. But the best part is using our share link. If you use this share button at the bottom, you can email this link to your students and your students can pull this tour up on their own personal device while they're watching you lecture over Zoom. So not necessarily do you have to do this in a virtual standpoint. You can do this while you're in physical class with them and have each one of them pull that link up on their iPad or phone while you're in a physical class together. And that's the last little part I wanted to show you about Atlas. And you guys all saw quizzing, the majority of quizzing that I showed earlier, but if anyone wants me to go over anything else in quizzing standpoint, I'm more than happy to do that too. But I know that there was a few questions that just popped up too.
So yeah, somebody was asking about the tour and I gave an explanation of that.
Okay.
Justin, do you want to circle around and talk about kind of your next steps and also I think it'd also be helpful, like, you know, like 3 key things that you started using for people that are new, things that they want to for sure do.
Yeah, sure. So I probably have the wildest teaching schedule ever because I go from teaching kinesiology to teaching sports administration in the springs, and then I'll go right back to teaching anatomy and kinesiology. But, you know, when I think about how I'm going to transition this back in the classroom, we talked a little bit before this meeting started about how I downloaded the apps onto an iPad. And one of the things that's really beneficial about that is I can share those to Apple TVs, and you can do this on a laptop as well. I would recommend it if you are using a laptop with a projector, get a mouse. It makes it a lot easier with a mouse, at least in my opinion. That's just me, or at least a touchscreen iPad. It works really well. But one of the things that I think is going to change for me when I get back in the classroom in the fall and actually have students in front of me is as it opposed to, for so long, we just had, you know, the students would memorize the origins, insertions, accents, nerve innervations, maybe the arterial or the blood supply for the muscle, and then the action of that muscle and what the origins and insertions were. And that would be on a PowerPoint, and they would have a picture that was just a 2D picture sitting right in front of them. And then maybe we would move on to palpating that on a human and doing things with the humans. Well, now instead of just giving them that 2D model, I have a 3D model that I can throw up on a screen for them, manipulate that model, have the students come up and manipulate the model with me while they're in class. It's still low stakes. They're able to do it on a screen. And then they take that same thing that we've done in the classroom and they take it home as an assignment. And essentially they get to review the information that we just did in the classroom and kind of build on their knowledge that way. I think that's the biggest change I'll be making, is that I'm taking this and it's completely going to be in the classroom with me. If I was a person that was brand new, I can tell you what I did was I spent about 15 to 20 minutes with my trainer, just going over some key points. And then I started playing with the system. I really feel like it takes a bit, but you learn that this system is pretty darn intuitive. So as soon as you learn that it's intuitive and kind of what the terms mean within the system, you can fumble your way through a lot of things and get to where you want to go. And if you don't know how to get somewhere, email, because they respond like that. So it is amazing how great the support has been through Visible Body as far as that. The other thing that I would really encourage you to do is to get a pre-made course to start with. Use a pre-made course that's built for you. It takes the thinking out on your part. And then, you know, even if you don't want to spend time going through manipulating things your first run through using that pre-made course, you can learn after a couple of sections, I don't really like this anatomy ID thing, or maybe I do want to do a whole lot more of the augmented reality. And we didn't even talk about that in this talk, but augmented reality is a game changer. And it's so nice to have the ability to have that app. And that's in Human Anatomy Atlas, right? I'm correct about that? Yeah. So to have that app on a mobile device where the students can project that image onto another surface and they're able to manipulate that through their device and see that. And that really, because, you know, I work at a small college. I would love to have one of the giant dissection tables that are really integrated and they've got all the bells and whistles, but this really helps students in a very affordable way for the student. The other thing is that once the students download this, they get a long-term access to these apps. And so, Visible Body was really good working with our bookstore at getting this to where the students can buy it through the bookstore, because that was like a stipulation and it was a hard go for us. And so it was really, at first I was really worried I wasn't going to be able to get it, but, work with your bookstore. If that's an issue for you, Visible Body will get this in your bookstore. The students can adopt it with their book money that they get, or whatever the case. Or the students can purchase the apps on their own, however it needs to go. But I think that if I had to pick 3 most important things: play with the system, use a pre-made course, and download it on a mobile device. So you can set and mess with it at home. I'm telling you, it makes a world of a difference, because guess what your students are going to be using this on? Not laptops. They're going to be using it on a mobile device. So at least if you're learning it on a mobile device along with them, you can speak their language when it comes to the things that you're trying to show them on the system.
To see the instructions on how to download a mobile application as well, go to the My Apps. Actually, I can share my screen really quickly so that everyone can see that. You're going to click on the My Apps in the bottom left-hand corner, and this will have all the instructions on how to download your mobile applications here. So feel free to go ahead. The one that has the augmented reality that Justin is talking about is this Human Anatomy Atlas logo right here. So go ahead and use the share buttons either with an iPhone or Android.
Justin, thank you very much. That was really helpful, and you're absolutely right. So students are able to purchase directly from their course for $49.99, or we can work with a bookstore so that students who have financial aid can purchase that way as well. So we appreciate the applause for Carly for her quick responsiveness, and I can say that is a fact for all of our team. Everybody has individual reps and we're very responsive. We want to make sure that you've got the support and the information that you need. We've got a great support team. If you ever have tech issues, make sure you loop in your rep, because that helps by getting us looped in. That then escalates the ticket, but we do have a really quick support turnaround time, and we have just phenomenal stability with our content. So Texas Women's University has over 800 students each semester, and for spring semester, for 800 students, there were 3 tickets, 2 of which the instructor knew about, and then just 1 other random ticket. So it's really an incredibly stable platform. We're really happy to help you personalize support. We get you started with those pre-made courses. Justin mentioned that he worked with a trainer. We've got 3 trainers on staff, plus all of the reps will help do training. And so lots and lots of different resources. Any other questions or comments? We've got a few more minutes. You can raise your hand or drop the question in the chat. If there's anything else, there was one question about the tours and kind of the way that worked. Let's see, we've got a couple here. Let's see. Looks like this is coming through. So we do have courses that are available for anatomy and physiology, for kinesiology, for pathophysiology, physical therapy, occupational therapy, massage therapy, like really pretty much anything. We have lots of different resources, and there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this where you have the ability to customize it. You can get started simply, and then as you use it longer, you know, tweak it and change it to suit your needs, but you don't have to start out that way. So
And I didn't even mention that. I teach athletic training classes as well, and the pathologies that are in there are very helpful as well. So there are animations that are in there to teach pathology. And so once again, it's just a thing that I don't have to go through and build this giant PowerPoint anymore of all this stuff or go find a YouTube video. It's all there for me. So
and your students that take one class from you 2 semesters later, they can take your athletic training class and they don't have to repay, which is nice.
that's it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Justin, thank you so much. So who are the Cincinnati Reds playing today?
We play the Cardinals today. St. Louis.
All right.
Good
So-
luck.
We'll see how that goes.
Thank you guys for joining us. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to your individual rep. You can submit a form through visiblebody.com. We appreciate you joining us. And Justin, thank you so much for your partnership.